It is 11 a.m. UK time, and you're just in time for this Advanced Performance Management webinar. My name is Martin Mwebia, and I'm part of the team that provides student support here at ACCA. A very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for finding time to join us today. So this session is designed to support your preparation for the APM exam. We will cover some useful exam tips and techniques, some frequently asked questions around APM, as well as a live question and answer session towards the tail end of it. And to take us through the session, I'm very pleased to be joined by expert tutor Steve Willis. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Martin.
Great. So before I hand over to Steve, I'd just like to cover a few housekeeping items. So you will find a number of buttons at the bottom of your screens, and these buttons will be useful to you in this session. So there's a help icon on the left, and that provides resources and information that can help you resolve any technical issues that you might experience. There are some icons for the slides and the media player. Please note that you will need to see both of these, so just ensure that you've selected them. If you'd like to engage with fellow webinar attendees, there's an attendee chat function, and that icon is on the right-hand side of your screen. We also have a resource list. There's an icon that looks like a file symbol, and if you click on that, you'll be able to access the resources that are relevant to today's webinar, including the direct links. Please note that you can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And in case at any point you can't hear what we are saying or you can't see any visuals, please refresh your browser. Now, if you've registered for this webinar, it means you'll be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So don't worry too much if you miss something or if you have any technical issues, you'll be able to access the recording. So I'm going to hand over to Steve in a bit, and I'll be back with you at the end of the session. Please remember, if you'd like to ask ACCA or Steve a question, just head over to the Q&A button, which is the middle icon at the bottom of your screens, and put in your questions early into the session. We may not be able to respond to all individual questions, but we hope that the questions that we address will be helpful to everyone. So welcome once again. And now, Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, brilliant APM candidates. My name is Steve Willis. I'm honored to be here. I'd also like to say thank you to ACCA for inviting me to speak. And guys, I'm like the top of a duck swimming in a pond. When you watch a duck, it looks so graceful cruising along the pond, but the feet below are working furiously. Let's thank our brilliant colleagues at ACCA as well who are making this happen. The behind the scenes work for this webinar is a lot more than my part talking to you guys. We are here. You have the exam coming up. You have 18 days. You are starting to get worried. Guys, I'm here to help you. I'm here to share my tips, my advice. I'm coming to you live from Central Europe, Czech Republic. I've been working with APM students all week. I've been thinking about our hour together. I'm going to share with you very practical tips to help you get a pass in 18 days. Now, don't worry at this point about what you did not do. That's in the past. Nothing we can do about that. You're going to focus on the future, and I'm going to share with you my tips on exam technique. I'm going to explain and share with you how to get the most out of the mock exam. I'm going to take your questions. I've already picked out some of the questions that I'll answer first. Guys, tell me if you're resitting. Hit the screen if you are resitting. Hit it either way, yes or no. We've got a poll happening here. Got 3 of you. I want to see at least half of you having responded. Guys, click on that poll, please. All right. Look at that. perfect split, 60-40, 60% no, 40% yes. Resitters, I feel your pain. I had to resit financial reporting more than once. Now, nothing you could do about what had happened in the past, but I would like you to be reflecting, because what are you going to change? You got to change something in your approach. I'd like you to be reflecting on that throughout our webinar. Okay, and we can talk more about it during the Q&A session. Guys, I've lined up for you what I think are the most effective tips to help you get a pass. This is based on my analysis of the recent examiners reports. This is based on my analysis of students' mock exams. This is based on my question and answer and debriefing with my actual students who pass APM, and we talk about what they did. Guys, first thing that you must do, this unlocks the technical marks, this unlocks the professional marks. You must follow the CEO's instructions to the letter. Do exactly what they ask you to do. We've been practicing this all morning in the other room. I will show you exactly what to do. You need to go into the ACCA Study Hub. It's the coolest thing out there now for helping you get a pass. Everything you need to know is packed into this website. Just about everything, okay? You've got the knowledge is there, the technical knowledge to learn in the chapters. You've got the flashcards to practice to ensure that you know the key materials. And then you've got the quizzes and the practice questions. So you go into the practice questions here, and you drill down into a practice question. And in the exhibits, people, this is an idiosyncrasy about APM that you have not seen in your other papers. You have to find the embedded requirement. The task is hidden. Look at this. The first tasks that the CEO believes would be useful is to evaluate the suitability of the current approach to budgeting. Evaluation requires expressing judgment. So right away, you know you need a structure, pros, cons, overall. I'm already getting ahead of myself. Then in the other exhibit, you need to recommend what changes should happening. Guys, if you can find those two verbs and you can execute the task as requested by the CEO or the finance director, you're going to score technical marks, professional marks. That is the first tip. Find, execute on the embedded tasks. Second tip, everybody, the verbs. I know you've heard this over and over, but it's important. In APM, you're getting the verbs, evaluate something, assess something, or recommend, critically evaluate. This is not the same as explaining something, describing, or discussing. This is a common mistake, a common problem. When you are evaluating, you must express judgment. Everything you're saying is about a positive feature or a negative feature. A recommendation needs to be clear and direct and supported with a logical argument. Too often, people begin discussing what they find in the pre-scene. Right now, the company is using traditional inventory control. We see the company is building up high levels of stock. We see the company has an old IT system. We see they don't communicate very well with their suppliers. We see this, blah, blah, blah. We see that. No marks are being earned when you are regurgitating the scenario. You got to get right down to it. If we switch to JIT, our inventory will go down and we'll have fewer damaged goods, right? You got to get right to your analysis. Skip the restating of the scenario. Do not copy paste big chunks of the scenario in. Will not help you. That is your second tip. Understand what you need to do when you see those verbs. You're going to be asked to assess impact, not describe the impact. So whenever you see assessment of impact, right away, is it a positive or a negative impact? We see the bargaining power of the customers is increasing. This will have a negative impact on our profits because they will now understand the competitors' product offerings much better. So we'll be competing more ferociously on price. Get right to it. Oh, we see that the government is now offering a government grant on this technology area. This is going to be a positive impact for us. If we can beat the other competitors to gain access to this grant, it's going to help us reduce our cost. It's going to help us launch our product faster. So you've got to express, is it a positive or a negative thing? Big or small, and what's the impact affecting? Evaluate the implementation of the new ERP system, the new radio frequency ID system. When you are evaluating something, use the structure pros and cons. How's it going to help? What issues are we going to, will emerge? Are we exposed to new risks? Do we need new IT? Do we need new competencies in our staff? Overall, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Should we go for it? Advise the directors on something. Well, if we do it, it's going to help us. It's going to hurt us. Overall, I recommend we postpone the decision to outsource. Okay? Lead times will go up. The risk of quality deteriorating is too great because we compete on quality. We are differentiators, etc., etc. Guys, that's the kind of language you use. That's the kind of argument you develop. Now, this one is the easiest fix for you resitters. Unjustified comments, unsupported comments. When I'm working with resitters who are already in practice, who have years of experience, but they're getting stuck on APM, this is what unlocks a pass. Prague is a good place to visit. We are now evaluating Prague as a destination, tourism destination. No mark awarded. I did not use any evidence from the scenario to build up a logical argument. My idea is unsupported. All we have to do to fix that is to say because. We fix it by saying because. Prague is a good place to visit because there's beautiful architecture, lots of activities, and it's not too expensive. Team, if you are a re-sitter right now or right after this, go into your hard drive, find any recent attempts at APM questions. You go back in there with one color highlighter, you highlight the point that you made. With the other highlighter, you find the evidence specifically from the scenario. And if that evidence is not there, you are not getting credit for that point that you made. Okay? The next thing that you need to do, and this is the problem that many experienced professionals have when they sit APM, they forget to state the obvious. So even if you think it's just so simple, anyone will understand it, you've got to make the point. The marketing team is looking for that. You got to provide evidence for your argument. Everything linked to the scenario. Guys, next tip. Avoid generic answers. Everything you write should be tailored to the story. For example, evaluating the performance report. It should be easy, but people don't get passing credit because they do this. A limitation of the report is that it doesn't have charts and graphs. Generic comments. Why do we need charts and graphs? Visualizations will help busy directors see trends and gain more insight at their annual meeting. So people, that is an example of stating the obvious. The person who wrote that thinks everybody knows why the charts and graphs will help. Well, we do know that, but you've got to let the marker know that you know it also. So look at that, easy fix, state the obvious. Now we say, for example, and that links it to the story. For example, the increase in sales, that's in the data, would be easier to see with the graph. Generic comments. Fix one, state the obvious. It's directors in the story, and it's about their annual meeting. Fix number two, say, for example. Guys, when I'm practicing with my students in the other room, when we make an answer plan, first thing we do, we look at the number of marks. Like, so if we need 13 marks, half of 13, 6.5, 7 is the threshold. So we got 8 or 9 ideas. Now, plan out your ideas. And before you begin writing, there's no reason you cannot type the words because also. Copy them there just as a reminder. It's a reminder to develop your ideas. If you're resitting, try that. Don't leave them there, of course. Don't leave those words there in your final answer. And as you run out of time, every idea might not be as developed as you want, but just get in the habit of doing your best. Okay? State the obvious, say, for example, link to the scenario. So we're saying a bit more than we might. Now, here's another problem. You got to develop enough ideas. Okay? I gave a spoiler. Martin, I just gave the spoiler. Ugh, right? Got ahead of myself. All right, guys, here is an example. We're in the practice, we're in the exam, and we found the embedded task. Look at that. We found it. And we found the number of marks, 13. Got to find the verb. They'd like to move to JIT purchasing. They've asked us to assess the changes that we'll have to make purchasing and production. So guys, I'm going to split those marks in half. Half of 13, 6.5. 7 would be a bare minimum pass, but let's add a little buffer. Let's make it 9. 9 marks. But we've got 2 things to do, purchasing and production. So if we could use a heading for both, it's 4 or 5 ideas under each. Look at what this person wrote. We're not going to read it all. I just want you to have a quick look. I got 3 ideas. They got to choose reliable suppliers. Quality should be on the agenda. JIT offers short production runs. Is that even going to get a mark there? Okay. Employees can spot mistakes instantly. Maybe they should market their own products. Guys, there's not enough. There is just not enough. Guys, 3 marks, maybe 4. This person did not write enough. Now, your homework. We don't have enough time on the course, on our webinar right now, to just completely deconstruct this answer. But I did it for you. It's in the attachment to the webinar. You download it. The good answer is there. The bad answer is there with the marking. And you can see how this one was turned into a good one. And the main problem here, not enough ideas. I want to see 2 headings. I want to see more ideas. So in the PDF attachment, you can see how to fix that. Highly recommend you check that out after our webinar. So remember this, 1 mark is 1 idea, and it's going to take you several sentences to get to a complete idea. If you're just writing 1 little sentence for each idea, they will not be developed to the level of assessment, recommendation, evaluation. If you are briefly outlining something, you could get away with it, but that's not an APM verb, briefly outline. So for a 12 marker, bare minimum is 8. Each idea is a tiny little paragraph, right? 2, 3 sentences. Now, my next tip, how to get the professional marks, 20 marks, sorry, 10 marks professional. Let me say that again. 10 professional marks in question 1. 5 professional marks in each of the section B questions, a total 20 professional marks. That's a lot of marks. Let's talk about how to get them. Guys, there's one thing you need to do to get the professional marks. That is, do exactly what the CEO asks of you, okay? You are going to frame your answer in the context of the business problem, the story, the scenario. You are going to imagine that you work there. Treat this as a business role play. Okay. Does your answer help the CEO? Is it linked to the story? Are you executing on that verb, doing exactly what they want? Okay? If you do all of those things, you will earn the professional marks. We can talk more about that in our Q&A session, okay? If you have more questions, specific questions on that. But people are freaking out about the professional marks. Do what the CEO asks. They ask you to write a report. Make question 1 look like a report with headings and subheadings. Structure your answer. Do what the guy says or the gal says, and you're going to get the communication marks. Don't drift off into long-winded definitions of things. Make the spreadsheet look beautiful. Okay? When you are assessing and evaluating, you give a developed logical argument using the evidence in the story. You come to a conclusion. You're getting A and E marks. Now, when you see a statement from a manager that doesn't really make sense. Oh, the staff are going to love switching to the new ERP system. But in the story, it says that the company has no IT competencies and they're already resisting. You could challenge that comment. If you are assessing something, don't be afraid to look at the negative aspects under a microscope. If you are looking at a report and you see signs of manipulation of data, that's how you get the skepticism. Business acumen, guys. Give relevant examples. Does your answer make sense in the context of the company? If you're looking at a not-for-profit organization and you start talking about EVA as an improvement, guys, not-for-profits don't have shareholders. They don't care about shareholder value. You can't even do it. So no business acumen there. Team, good examples, helpful advice, linked to the story, insightful comments, you're getting your business acumen. There you go, Martin. I just told him what to do to get the professional marks. Guys, you got some great tools for these last 18 days. You've got the practice platform. There you can find recent past exams. Guys, with APM though, you got to be careful to focus on post-September 2022, because the earlier exams will have the different structure. They might not have the embedded tasks, and they won't have the professional skills, this professional skills marks. So if you're going back into the older questions, do that with caution. Now, if you go into the study hub, that's a different story. There you're going to find a whole bunch of questions that have been updated. So you want to focus on those questions that have been updated. There are great videos out there on YouTube. You can go to the ACCA student YouTube channel. Tons of helpful videos are there. I'm proud and happy to say that I've made some of them. And I also have a YouTube channel, and I'll be putting some more APM videos up there. So check out my YouTube video. There are other amazing resources. You guys have so much stuff. When I was doing my exams, I had the examiner's report and the past exams and my book. That was it. You guys have so much stuff. Look at me. I sound like I sound like my grandfather. When I was your age. Oh, da, 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 da. But guys, use these awesome resources. And the mock exam. Guys, no excuse not to do a mock exam. Gone are the days when you had to be sitting on a premium expensive course. ACCA, I'm proud to have helped. We've produced mock exams for all of the papers. You can now simulate the exam experience. Okay? Guys, mock exam is critical. Studying the book is only part of it. Doing the questions without time, that's only part of it. You got to treat this like a musician getting ready for a performance. Musicians are practicing to time with a metronome. Musicians are rehearsing. That's what this mock exam is for. It's your opportunity for rehearsal. Follow the guidance, okay? You start in section A. Start with question 1. 1 hour, 45 minutes. You move to section B, 45 minutes each question. Now, be ruthless with your time. Just recognize you're not going to finish everything. It's just going to underscore the importance of exam technique. After you try that mock exam, check out the debrief videos. All the tips are there. Everything is there. Okay? And if you follow those tips, you can go back into the practice platform. You can do practice exam 1, practice exam 2, and you're going to be in great shape. So you got to plan it now. Block out 3 hours, 15 minutes. I recommend you do this in a morning. Your morning energy is the best. Morning energy is the best for doing ACCA work. View the debrief videos, and I'm going to take you through writing, exam technique tips, lots of examples. So guys, that is really something that needs to be on your checklist for success. Continuous improvement. Do the mock, practice exam 1, practice exam 2, incremental Kaizen approach. We're doing Kaizen. We're using the philosophy of continuous improvement. Guys, those are the top tips. If you can do those things, work hard these last 18 days, you guys have a pass in your possibility, your realm of possibility, okay? Let's talk about your questions. Can we use tables in our answer? So imagine we're doing pros and cons of something. There's no reason you couldn't use a table. The markers will evaluate your writing. The markers will assess your work, whether or not it's in a table. I find, though, a table can be a psychological barrier to writing more. I find when I'm marking mock exams, if people have used tables, they're writing a little bit less. So I would say use a table cautiously. There's no reason you could, instead of making a column for pros, a column for cons, you can make a heading for pros, a heading for cons. All of your ideas are in there. So I'm not sure it's going to help you get more marks in APM. Okay? I don't think it's needed. Guys, this is ACCA unleashed a monster with the copy pasting. On the one hand, it's very helpful to copy in the embedded tasks. Do not copy in blocks of text from the scenario. It's lulling you into a false sense of security that you are completing your answer because you've got words on the screen. But no, it's not helping you. Copy pasting info, you do not need to restate the scenario. If we see that the company is using a traditional approach to inventory management, building up high levels of inventory, blah, 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 the marker knows the story. You're the management consultant. You know the story. You just jump in and say, this approach is wrong because the high inventory is leading to high holding costs and damaged goods. You did not need to restate the paragraph. So don't. You just refer to the scenario. You don't restate it. Don't copy paste big chunks. Not going to help you. Guys, this is a problem. Many of the models, many of the tools overlap between the two papers. In SBL, you are doing business analysis. You are evaluating strategies. Guys, in APM, we are helping the company reach their objectives. Performance management. Is the company on track to hitting their goals? We can measure performance before we manage performance. So in APM, we're using a model to formulate a strategy. And in APM, we can use the same model to look for threats. What could harm us from reaching our objectives? What should we measure in the external environment? What activities give us competitive advantage in APM? What could we do to improve our processes so we can improve our profits? Guys, they are different beasts. Make sure you recognize that. Make sure you use the model from a performance management approach, not from a generic approach. Hey, could someone please go on mute, if you don't mind? Someone is not muted. Is it necessary to read all of the technical articles? Guys, the technical articles are a great resource. They've been around for a while. And the technical articles, it's now a master compilation. If you don't know a topic, you could go to a technical article, but it would be faster to go to the study hub now. So you don't need to read all of the technical articles. I suggest you focus. There are amazing exam technique resources. Those are the technical resources you need. You've got to read the article. You've got to check out the technical article. Read the mind of the marker. How to improve your APM answer. Those are two great technical articles. But at this point, unless you are looking for specific guidance on a topic, you should be doing past exam questions. Much better. And the technical articles, they go too deep into the background, right? You don't need to give background knowledge. You just use that technique to answer the question from the CEO. Do you think doing section B first is a good idea? I recommend you start in section A with 1 hour, 45 minutes. Section A takes more energy. You've got 5 extra communication marks. 5 extra marks means more time. You've got to read that bigger story, set up your report. I recommend you do section A first, but if you see the questions in section A and you hate them, you could get warmed up in section B, but you must be ruthless with your time. Only 45 minutes. So I don't think it's a good idea, but you could do it in an emergency, okay? Can we pass without doing calculations? There's going to be 10 to 15 marks for calculations. In theory, you could. It would be a very risky approach. Try your best with the calculations. If you get a little part of it wrong, you'll get assumed, they'll assume your calculation is correct when you move to the next part. So do not skip the calculation. Yeah, in theory, you could pass only doing question 1, couldn't you? In theory, you could pass without doing the calculations, but it's not a good idea. You want those marks. Calculation marks tend to be easier too, right? Calculating some KPIs, I think you can do that. If you're stuck resitting, I feel your pain. I have been there. If you are a chronic resitter, if you have failed more than 3 times, I recommend you do a mock exam from one of the training providers, and you need to get professional feedback. If you have a chronic illness and you've been trying home remedies and they're not working, you got to go to the doctor. So go to the doctor at one of the approved providers, do a mock exam, get some feedback. If you are resitting, I want you to get out an older exam question that you did. I want you to go through everything I've said in this mock exam. Are you developing your ideas? Do you have a structure? Did you develop enough ideas? Okay, you need to do an autopsy on your last attempt. And you got to decide what you are going to change about your approach. Team, let's look at your live questions. I'm going to now open up the folder for me. Let's see what we got. Got some great questions here. How should we split our time reading, planning, writing? Guys, first thing you got to do, set up your workspace. Exhibits on the left, work responses on the right. Then you've got to find the embedded requirements. Then you've got to copy paste them in. You've got a structure. That's going to take some time. I think by the time you get to answering the question, it's going to be 1.5 minutes per mark or even 1.3 minutes per mark. Okay? So it's very important that you split your time, that you do a good job on the planning. You do a good job on the questions set up before you begin writing. The total time, 45 minutes. When you're all done with the reading and the planning, you're down to 1.5 to 1.3 minutes per mark, okay? Which is fine because you've got your answer all structured out. Here's a great question. What is more important, linking to the scenario or demonstrating your course notes knowledge? They are equally important. If they're asking you to use a model, let's say it's the Six Sigma methodology to find and remove the root cause of a defect. If you just freestyle your answer, If you just come up with a bunch of generic ideas about process improvement or how we can find the root cause of a defect, they may be brilliant, but if you did not refer to the technical knowledge of DMAIC, you're not getting any credit. But on the other hand, if you just went on and on and on about DMAIC defining each part of the model, you're going to get some marks potentially, but it's not going to cross over to the passing marks. You'll get 20, 30% of the marks. So you've got to use the technical knowledge from the course notes as a framework. And then within that technical knowledge, you then answer the question asked, linking to the scenario. So they are both important. You cannot get a pass without using both the technical knowledge and the scenario information. What great questions you have. It's so difficult to do question 1 when you only have one screen and loads of exhibits to open. How are you supposed to manage this? Well, I've got some bad news for you. Welcome to professional life. You got emails. You've got the report you're working on. You've got your research. We have to manage windows in real life. Short answer for you. Practice is what you do. You open up every exhibit. You park it on the left. You open up your response options. You park them on the right. You open up the requirements. You copy it into the word processor. Then you go on a quest. You go hunting. You find the embedded tasks. Copy those in. Then you go back and you start reading the answer and answering the question. It's rehearsal. It's practice is how you do it, okay? That's the only way to do it. Yes, it's overwhelming the first time you see it. Yes, it's overwhelming the first time you try it. And yes, it's going to be overwhelming every time you do it unless you develop a methodology. Guys, professionals that work in high-stress situations, firemen, policemen, first responders, they manage the stress by rehearsal. Okay, guys, please go on. I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Can we please mute all of the participants? It's quite distracting. We can mute participants, please. Okay. Martin, if you would please be so kind as to mute. Thank you. Okay. Next question. Getting into the right mindset is difficult. How do we get into the right mindset? You guys, can we please go on mute? I don't think I can do that as a presenter. Will anyone help me please go on mute? Guys, here's the question. How do we get in the right mindset? Well, right now, for example, it's difficult to be in the right mindset with lots of distractors. You need to close your eyes. At the beginning of the exam, I want you to imagine that you work there, okay? Okay? Stand by, please. My bad. All of that was coming from me. My bad. Guys, I apologize. Mindset. We get in the correct mindset by imagining that we work there. As we are reading the pre-scene, let's imagine that we work in the company. Close our eyes. Pretend you work there. Then take each request in turn. Do not worry about getting a pass on the exam. What you want to do, take each in turn. Take each request from the CEO. Just treat it like one little project and then move on. Next question. There's so many of them, it's hard to pick. Here's a quick question. How much of the requirement should we leave in our answer as a header? So we're talking now about setting up our workspace. We copy paste in the requirement from the CEO. You got to clean that up. You don't want to leave it there. If the request says something like this, the CEO would like you to evaluate the CEOs and then recommend one more. You get rid of all of that. You just say KPI recommendation, right? You have to summarize that. So it's a nice, crisp, clean heading in your report. Okay? So clean up those embedded tasks when you copy them in. Here's someone struggling between analyze something and evaluate something. Don't stress about that. If the concept there is it's rather similar. There's overlap there. If I am evaluating the usefulness of my insulated travel mug, I'm going to be looking at what's good about it, what's bad about it. Evaluation, expression of judgment. Is it helping me? What are the issues? And then I'm going to arrive at an overall comment. Okay, overall, it's a good thing. Guys, it's very similar to analyze. When you're analyzing, now let's analyze the situation. Let's go to the data. Let's go look at some data. Let's see what the data says. And what's the data telling us? Well, it's telling us some good things and some bad things, and we're going to arrive at an overall conclusion. So do not stress about the micro differences. Both of those require expression of judgment. Both of those require a structure of pros and cons. Both of those require using evidence from the scenario. Analyzing, make sure you're using data from all of the exhibits, from all of the tables. So they're quite similar. If you are segmenting your answer into pros and cons, then you will be scoring the marks. Here's a very good question. And maybe this is also creates some misunderstanding. Our delegate Joe asks the question, everything I read says link to the scenario. But we don't need to, do we need to explain why it links to the scenario or just the impact to the scenario? What you need to do is just use the scenario as evidence in the story. You do not need to retell the entire story to make your point. Remember, the marker knows the story. You're the consultant. You know the story. The CEO knows the story. So do what you just said there. We only care about the impact to the element in the story that's important. So don't retell the entire story. We're just using that, refer to the piece of the story that's important. There's so many questions here, guys. Give me picking out a last question for us. Here's a great question. I've gone through a majority of the content and done a few past questions here and there. What would you advise is the most productive way to spend the last 2 weeks? We got 18 days. What I recommend you do, I would make a study plan at this point. It's very important at this point to break your overall goal of passing APM into a series of small, achievable objectives. You've got 4 syllabus areas. You know, syllabus area D, specialist, the alternative performance management models, activity-based management, value-based management. Those are going to come up. Make sure that you study one past exam question on each of those topics. So put that into your study plan. Then you need to go through the other syllabus areas, spread topics out into your daily routine, into your daily plan, and try to do a past exam question, a recent one, on those topics. Now, if you don't have, in fact, you won't have time to do a full written simulation of every question. What you want to do, make an answer plan. What ideas would you put into your answer? And then you want to practice writing up just 3 ideas. So for a 10-mark requirement, make a full answer plan, write up 3 ideas following great time management of 1.5 minutes per mark. So then you'd spend, 5 minutes. So now you get a simulation of writing and planning. So make a study plan, go around the syllabus, study from past exam questions. Now, on the weekends, you've got to be doing the mock exam, you've got to be doing the practice exams as well. So make sure you're now committing to full simulations on the weekends where you practice the real approach, copy pasting in the requirements, developing your answer. Okay, there you go. What you should be doing now, breaking the big objective into small chunks based on practicing questions around the syllabus. Martin, we're about out of time. Do you have any final thoughts to share with our amazing, brilliant APM students?
Thank you, Steve. I think you have covered the bulk of the content. Thank you so much for that insightful session. So we are going to wind up now. Just to say a big thank you to everyone for joining in. Thank you so much for the engagement. Thank you for the questions and the comments. Just a quick reminder that this is a time to maximize your engagement with the ACCA resources. Head over to the ACCA website, the student support section. There is a whole list of resources there. Key amongst them, the mock that Steve has emphasized about. Please do the mock under exam conditions, self-mark the mock, and then watch the debrief videos. Those videos are now live on the ACCA website. So please do include those in your preparations. As well, to remind you that the session was being recorded. So in case you missed anything, please look out for an email tomorrow with a link to access the recording. But for now, from the rest of the team here at ACCA, best of luck as you prepare for your exams. Take care.
Goodbye, everybody. Stay focused. Make a daily plan. You guys can get a pass.